All right, we should be live. Hello, everyone. I'll just wait a little bit for everyone to pop up, but I am so excited to have NALINI Singh here with me today on my channel. NALINI is, if you watch my channel, you probably know that she is one of my all-time favorite paranormal romance authors, just like favorite authors in general. So I am fangirling inside right now. We have so much to talk about. If anyone has any questions about NALINI, her books, or just writing things in general, feel free to pop them in the questions, and we will get to you. But we are going to talk a little bit about her new release, Resonance Surge, which came out this month. We're going to keep it spoiler free, but other than that, yeah, let's just jump in. How are you, NALINI? How has your newest release gone?
I'm well. It's nice to be here. Thank you for having me on your channel. Yeah, the newest release has gone really well. For some reason, it feels like it took a really long time for this release to come, but it's the same timing as everything else. And I think it's because I'm already working on the next Psy-Changeling book, so I've been really impatient for this one to come out. So yeah, it's been really fun seeing the reactions from readers, and it actually only came out internationally yesterday. So there's a lot of readers still discovering the book, which is really fun, and I kind of got to have 2 release days, which was really nice.
Yeah, you get to celebrate it twice then.
Yeah.
Do you ever do anything to celebrate? I mean, I know you're a pro veteran at releases at this point, but do you do any celebrations, or do you ever get nervous the night before?
I'm always excited for the book to come out. That's never, like, I've never gotten over that. It's not so much nervousness, but just excitement that it's finally out in the world. And in general, like, I don't do like a big release party or anything, but it just so happened that I had an event in Auckland, a live event this time around. So that was really fun. I got to, it's quite an intimate little bookshop, and so I got to chat with everyone, and it's a tea shop too, and it's really cold here right now because it's winter, and so they were offering everyone tea, so everyone had their little cups of tea and we had a
Oh,
quick
that's
chat.
cute.
So that was actually really lovely. But yeah, I don't have like a set thing I do, but I generally end up going out, with friends or family, and just having a little celebration.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's see. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Okay, so Lizel said, I binged your entire Psy-Changeling series. I started in December of last year, and I finally caught up, listened to all the audiobooks. Have you ever listened to any of your audiobooks?
I have listened to samples, and that's all I can do because, like, obviously the books sound different in my head because they don't sound like audiobooks. They sound like stories. I hear the characters. So I love audiobooks in general, but I find it really difficult to listen to my own audiobooks. Yeah. But I love audiobooks. I've really gotten into them. And so I'm really pleased my books are also available on audio for everyone else.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of authors can't really listen to their own stories. It's like too cringy.
It's weird. It's like this weird, the voice doesn't match. Like,
Mm.
I know for the Psy-Changeling series, Angela Dorr is the English language reader for the entire series, and she is the voice for the series for a lot of audiobook listeners, which I love that we have been able to keep the same narrator throughout the series, because I think that's really important, because she has become the voice of the series, which is fantastic. But my voice of the series are the voices in my head. So
We have a lot of love for you here, NALINI. Everyone's so excited that you're
oh, is it?
here.
How do I say your name? Angelica. Hi, Izzy.
Love Elena and Raphael. Yes, Guild Hunter is amazing.
They're coming back next year in Archangel's Lineage. So.
Ooh, I saw you just posted a little tease of it, right?
Yeah. I just started going online, and I thought, okay, I better just it's happening. So it's always nice to get like an actual date that I can tell people.
Yes. Ooh, do we get any hints for the current work in progress or anything about the upcoming mystery?
I can't tell you anything about the current work in progress because it's too early, and I generally tend not to talk about my books until they're sort of more in their final shape. But I can tell you about the upcoming mystery. It's so quite a few people who've read it have described it as a locked room mystery, but it's these friends. They were university friends, and they decided to meet for a reunion in the mountains in a very alpine region in New Zealand. It's beautiful. But it's very, very remote. And then they get cut off by the weather, and there's all kinds of weirdness happening in this old mansion that is kind of half burned down on one side, so it's got a very sort of dark vibe to it, very gothic. And then and then one of them actually died during their university time, and so now it's like they're starting to discover that all was not what they believed it to be. So yeah, it's a little bit creepy. It's a mystery. It's fun. I really enjoyed it. It's very atmospheric.
And this one is coming out later this year, right?
Yes, I think November. Yeah. So this is a 2023 release. Yeah, and actually, I have the cover, and it will be coming out on Tuesday my time, so Monday US time.
Ooh, next week. So close.
Yeah.
Yes. I think everyone can agree with this comment from Esther. I can't wait to know more about the next Psy-Changeling book.
I won't tell you anything.
I'll try to squeeze it out of you in a bit. The audio version, yes. This has come out. Yeah.
Because we had to again keep the same narrator. We had a scheduling clash, so we decided that we would delay the audio so Angela could still be the narrator.
Oh, what about graphic audios? Do you think any of your books will ever be done in this style?
That's the ones that have that are like a show, right? Like
like background music, different voices, cast. Yeah.
I'm open to that. So if it's something that the opportunity comes up, I would definitely look at that. I'm not against it at all. So yeah. Maybe.
Whoever is from working at graphic audio, and if you're watching this, Ooh, do you know when we're getting the cover for Archangel's Lineage?
Okay, so I have actually seen the draft. I've seen Tony Maro's artwork for it, the initial draft artwork. It's so beautiful. It is really breathtaking. And I don't know, it's probably going to be a while before the final cover because it's an April 2024 release. So probably a few months at least, but it will take your breath away. I promise.
Yeah, all your covers are just so nice. I mean, the Trinity series, the style's beautiful, and then all the angels and Guild Hunter, you have some really nice covers.
Yeah, I think some people think they're a bit retro, but I actually really like the fantasy look to it, with the wings and the colors, and and I think it suits the series.
Yes. All right, so I mean, we can chat a bit about Resonance Surge, spoiler free. But since this is book 7 in the series, book 22 in the whole Psy-Changeling world, in case anyone hasn't read it yet or hasn't gone to it yet, do you want to talk about or give a little summary about what it's about and share why people should read this one? I mean, my personal reasoning is that it's about bears, so people always should read about bear changelings.
So yeah, it's a fun book because the bears are fun. But if you're a reader of the series, you should read this book because it goes back to some elements that were brought up very early on in the series, which is the rehabilitation centers. And so people who don't read the series, in this book, we have the Psy, who conditioned emotion out of themselves 100 years ago. And as part of that, if you broke the rules and you were emotional and in the end it was very politically corrupt as well, so they would send you to rehabilitation centers, which was actually a psychic brainwipe that basically erased who you were. and did a lot of damage to the brain as well. And so we knew about them, but we don't know where they are at this point in the story, where all these changes have taken place with the Psy and the world in general. So I thought, one of the taglines for the book is where are the broken? What happened to them? And so this book sort of addresses that point. Where are these people, and what is happening now to them that society has changed? So that's the sort of more intense background plotline to the book. But at the forefront, of course, is this bear changeling who is very rough and tough and in your face, and the Psy who is very buttoned up, even more so than a lot of Psy, and is just not interested until she locks eyes with the bear, and she has no idea what's going on. And it's this really beautiful dance of a relationship. And we've also got a secondary love story going on with Pavel and Arwen, who have been sort of flirting throughout the series. We've seen bits of, so we get to see more of them, because this is a book about twins. So Pavel and Yakov are twins, and so obviously they're going to be naturally in each other's lives, because I like writing big casts that interact. And of course, these two brothers who are like besties who beat each other up are going to be in each other's lives. And then we have Theo, the female protagonist, and she is also a twin, and her brother Pax is part of her life. And so Pax is a really interesting character, so we get to see a bit of what's happening with him. Not to spoil anyone, so I'll just leave it there. But read this book for fun, for the Psy-Changeling world. And if you haven't read any of the series, you can start at Silver Silence. It's written as a book you can start at, which is the first bear book. So even if you just read that and then you skip to this one, you will get, bears back to back. So you will know about the way their clan works and get to see the characters early on and then into this book. Yeah, so just read it. It's really good.
Yes. I mean, I totally, fully stand by that. But speaking of the centers, we got a question. What other Psy families own rehabilitation centers? Do you know? Or...
I kind of know, but I think I will leave that unspoken to be emerging in other books, because I think there's so much we don't know about the things that were going on in the background, and it's really nice to lift the veil in the books as the series continues. So I will keep my lips zipped on that.
Yes, the bears crack me up every time. Love them. Yes, I am curious if you ever make yourself laugh coming up with all the different shenanigans that the bears do.
Yes, I just I know something is good, like a scene's really working because I'm laughing or I'm crying, because obviously I'm writing it, but I still, if I think it's hysterical, I mean, it might just be me laughing at my own joke, but obviously I should laugh at my own jokes, right? Like I should be like, oh, this is really funny. So yeah, for sure. And you know what else cracks me up is whenever there's an earthquake and they're
oh my god. Yeah. I know exactly the reason why those earthquakes happen, NALINI.
That's just like a running joke, and it cracks me up still to this day. So it will continue. It will continue because, of course, there are still going to be earthquakes, because, of course, the reason is still going to occur.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you brought that up. It's so funny. And how everyone is always so confused or trying to figure out why are there earthquakes in Russia? Ooh, so what was your favorite part about writing Theo and Yakov's romance? Like, was there anything particularly special that you loved about them that made them, different from the rest of the couples in the series?
Yeah, so each of the couples have been unique, because I think of them as people, and I really put thought into finding out who these people are. And what I found really interesting about Theo and Yakov was that there's elements in them that are unexpected. So with Yakov, we knew who his great-grandfather was, but I think nobody really thought about it, like what the implications of him having a really powerful Forcia as a direct ancestor might have on his genetics, because he's so obviously a bear that you don't actually think, hey, maybe there's a few Psy genes still floating around, in the gene pool. And then we have Theo, and she's unexpected because she is the lowest gradient Psy we've ever had as a protagonist in the series. And so she was really interesting to write, because if I write about, say, Caleb, or I write about Aiden or Zara, these are all very powerful Psy. So whatever happens, they know they're dangerous, right? They can handle things that way. But Theo was brought up thinking that she's useless. And yet at the same time, she's coming to the realization that she is actually very dangerous in her own way. But for her, it's a process of realization, because she was, told that she was worthless compared to her twin, who is very powerful. And then we have these two coming together, and somehow they find a tenderness with each other that I think is really, really sweet. I think they're one of the sweeter couples in the series, because the way they treat each other is, I don't want to spoil it, but there is a care there. There is always a care there about how the other person feels. And I don't know, like, he's this big brash bear, and he thinks he's not going to like her. He's all ready to not like her because she's a Psy. And then he just can't help looking after her, because he can see that she needs it, and she doesn't understand why she's reacting to that until she starts to comprehend that this is care, this is tenderness, and it's having this really big impact on her life, because it's nothing she's ever received before. So it was just lovely seeing this sort of unwrapping of themselves to each other, and so they're allowing each other in this so because he's a bear, he makes everything a little bit funny, he makes it warm, and yet there's all these intense emotions going on under the surface.
And then there's also that element of his dreams too. Like
Yes.
her in his dreams. I always love that kind of stuff in romance.
Yeah.
It's like almost fated mates, you're like, it's great. So what did you ever consider writing Pavel and Arwen, their romance, on its own, or did you always know that you were going to incorporate it within Resonance Surge or like one of the books?
I wasn't sure when it started, but as it went along, I realized it had to be incorporated into a book, because there's really not major conflict in their relationship, and I didn't want to add a conflict for no reason, right? Their natural relationship is a really fun, flirty, and at the start it's kind of antagonistic, and he's giving him the death stare and things like that. So I wanted to keep the fun of that, because I remember, so it's traumatized me as a young teenager reading books. I remember reading this series, and there was a really fun character, and he was really cheerful and kind of flirtatious and happy, and then the author wrote his book, and it was really traumatizing. She did terrible things to him. And I think sometimes the happy characters need to just be left happy. And so, but you can't write a whole book without any kind of something for them to work out, in the story. It would be a very short book. And so, because I didn't want to manufacture conflict for them, and then when I started writing this book, I thought, well, of course it's going to be this book, because he's so naturally in his brother's life that it makes sense that they would see each other, that things would happen, and we would get an insight into Pavel and Arwen's relationship as well. So yeah, that's why it just worked out. It was kind of like in the previous season of the series, we had Walker and Lara. That kind of just happened, and then it was woven into the series, and so it didn't have, I suppose doesn't have enough meat from a writer's perspective to be a full story, but I still wanted to tell that story, and being woven into this book was just perfect. It worked, and it allowed them to just be the happy couple without any, trauma.
Yes, that's true. They're the type of couple who you want only good things for.
Yeah. I want them to be cute and adorable, and fixing each other's shirts, and
Yeah. Like them bang their heads on the table when they're with family. Yes.
I love that scene so much. That is one of my favorite scenes because I can just see that he's trying to be so like, I can deal with this. And then finally he's like, no, I can't.
Oh, here's a good question. Did you know that Theo was going to be a main character, or was she more of a surprise like Jed?
She was a little bit of a surprise, I have to be honest, but at the same time, the first scene we see of her where she opens the door to Pax, I was actually quite fascinated by her, but I like didn't know anything about her at this point because I get to know my characters by writing my characters, and but she never went away, and she was just quietly there in the background, and then suddenly she was right at the forefront, and I was like, okay. I always thought Pax would have a book, be the first one, but things are changing, and that's the thing with writing a series. Characters grow and change and flex, and in ways I can't foresee always, because while I know the plot, I know the overall plot of the series, I can't map character growth because for me it feels like it's a natural thing they're kind of doing themselves. So yeah, Theo sort of came to this point where I was like, wow, okay, I'm writing a book.
When it comes to like future books and future couples and main characters, do you have like a running list of who you want to write about next? Like you always refer back to like who should I write about next, or who are you gonna match up?
There's always characters in the back of my head that I'm like, I really need to write their book. I really need to write their book. And I don't have like a actual physical list or anything, but there's definitely a running list in my head, but it has to do with the story I'm telling. And so sometimes when I sit down to write, I'm like, oh, it's definitely going to be this person's book, and then it's not. It kind of depends on which element of the story I'm focusing on who we focus on in the book. And so sometimes it is a surprise, like Theo is suddenly there, and the next book is also like, I was like, was not expecting that, but okay, I'm going with it. This is who wants to speak to me. So I do keep track of characters because none of the characters are just randomly in the books. I have considered them, and they are full people, and I really want to tell their stories. So for example, I haven't forgotten Adam from the Falcons. I haven't forgotten Malachi from the Psy-Changelings. I don't forget any of these people. It's just where can they naturally flow into the story because of this big story that we're telling, over multiple books, and each of them has their part to play. So yeah.
Well, speaking of all the other characters, hope we get another Black Sea book as well, as more as Forgotten and Human Alliance. No rush.
Yeah, they'll all be back. I have not forgotten the forgotten. I just wanted to say that. Yeah, no, slowly pieces are coming together right now because of what's happening in the SciNet. Obviously, the Psy are very much at the forefront because we need to follow on that. You can't just kind of not have an eye on that. So it's really important, and that's why we're having so many Psy turning up, in the books. So who knows what the future holds.
Hi, Nalini. I love Memory, Evan Rose, and her special E skills. Will we ever get to see Memory and Ethan work together again?
Yes, I think that is definitely going to happen. Yeah, I foresee that in the future. That's it. That's what I'm gonna say.
I was gonna say, like, that's a little bit of Psy in you, Nalini. Let's see. Ooh, Guild Hunter question. What is your favorite character or couple from the Guild Hunter series?
Oh, I always find these kinds of questions really hard because I love my characters so much, all of them. And when I'm writing a book, that's it. That's my favorite because I'm writing the book. But I think with the Guild Hunter, definitely Elena and Raphael will always hold a special place because they were the beginning and they will be the end. That they are the center of the series. They hold everything else together. They they are the core around which everybody else kind of spins. All the other stories flow off them. Because of them, all of the events that have taken place in the world of the Guild Hunters have occurred in one way or another, because they were the first domino. You know, they started the cascade, kind of, not the actual cascade, but the cascade of events. And so yeah, I think they will always be the central couple that I'm drawn to, that I know the most, because I've spent the most amount of time with them, you know, multiple books. I've seen them grow from this mortal and this really distant, remote archangel to the current relationship where they rely on each other and they are each other's everything. And that power balance has shifted so significantly. So yeah, I think it has to come back to them.
And then they also asked about Nadiel's wings. What color? Do you know what color they are?
I do know, but I would actually have to check, because I'm always like, what if I get it wrong? Like I'm on video. So I have to check my notes, and then I will tell you after I check my notes. But I'm pretty sure it's in one of the books, but if it's not, I do know I have that noted down somewhere.
So do you have a series Bible where you keep track of every single little detail that you use to refer to everything?
Yeah, I do, but it's not as detailed as you might think, because I think it's really important for the books to still be the first resource. So what I do instead is, so I have the basic notes, you know, character notes, age, height, you know, just the really basic stuff. I have maps of where everybody lives and the time it takes to get from place to place, that kind of thing. But in terms of actual, like if I need to refresh myself on a character, for example, I will reread every single scene in which they've appeared in the series. So that could be a lot of reading for like a character that's run across multiple books. Like when I wrote Hawke's book, for example, I read all his appearances in the previous books, starting from the very first book. Or it could just be a little bit of rereading when it's a character we haven't seen much of. But I find that for me, that's the best way to refresh myself, because then I'm on the same page as the reader. So, because I have information in my head that you guys don't have, because I haven't put it in the book. And so I try to write with that in mind, that this is what the reader knows. And so if there's new information, I need to introduce that and not just assume that you already know, assume that I've told you when I actually haven't. So yeah, but I do keep very extensive notes as well, because it's this far into a series, it's really important. Otherwise the continuity is just gonna go all over the place.
Yeah. Okay, I only have one question. Will and Anthony get a book?
I don't know. I think you'll get to see them through the series. I never wrote either of these characters as like a future protagonist. They just kind of took it upon themselves to be this interesting. So I can't quite see them ever having a book, for the simple reason of who they are, right? Like they are so, what's the word? You know, so they're so internal. Like they don't let many people in, and I can't quite see them being open enough for a full book. But I think we will see more of them as the series continues, and as they naturally come into it. We've already seen a progression, and so we're going to continue to see where that's going.
At this point, I need a whole spin-off for the Psy-Changelings.
They're pretty fun. Yeah, they're quite fun to write about, because I do a lot of research about like sea creatures and stuff, and there's so many cool ones, and it's like you can do such fun stuff with them.
Yeah, you have a lot of possibilities, NALINI.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a good question. Are you thinking about redoing the old covers in the Psy-Changeling world to match the new ones?
Oh, so I'm published with a publisher, not self-published, so I can't do it myself. But we haven't talked about that, because I think that because the series is still going, so we've got the new series and then we've got the season 1, but they have changed redo the cover for Slave to Sensation for the 10th anniversary. So I don't think it's off the table that there could be a shift in the future again to do newer style covers. Yeah, I'll float it to them on your behalf.
Well, speaking of Slave to Sensation, I remember seeing a special edition cover for it. Are we still getting a special edition of that book?
Yeah, that's happening with booktok. So they're doing the special edition. Yeah, and the artwork and everything has been done. I haven't been sent which date it's going out, but I would think it would be soonish. But yeah, it's a beautiful cover. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's on I linked to it on my Instagram, but the artist is Michelle Taiki, and she has also got it on her Instagram. So you can have a look and yeah, check it out. Check out the bookbox.
She has a lot of great fan art of the series.
Yes.
We need more fan art of your books.
Ooh. Yeah, I love that people are inspired by the books to create fan art. You know, it's so beautiful that my art is helping someone else, you know, get inspired for their art. So that's really fun.
Yes. I always love seeing like the chibi style, the babies.
Yeah. There's a couple of artists on Instagram in particular that do the chibi art. So it's so cute.
And like the baby wings and everything. Yeah. What is your favorite Psy ability to write?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. There are so many interesting abilities, and there's the one I'm writing right now is one I haven't written in a protagonist before. So it's a little clue for you. So that's quite fascinating to write. But I don't know. I love them all in different ways. That's why there's so many different ones, because I just think this is cool. So people should be able to do this. But I mean, the teleporters are quite fun because you can do kind of funny things with them as well as the powerful things. You know, like Vasek teleporting him and Ivy in the middle of 60 times. You know, they're ending up different places. So you know that's kind of fun to write sometimes. But then it's also the dark side of that ability is so much power that they could literally kill someone without meaning to, particularly when they're children and out of control. So yeah, I actually really enjoy all the different varieties because the empaths are actually really interesting to write about, because it's difficult to write about them because it's so internal what they do. Whereas with a teleporter or a telekinetic, you can physically see what they're doing. And there's a reaction and there's a response. Whereas with an empath, it is very cerebral. And so there's not as much of a physical element to it. And so that's actually more difficult to write from a writer's point of view. But that just makes it interesting because it means I have to figure out ways to describe what they're doing that makes sense to readers, but is also interesting to read.
Well, if you were a Psy, what kind of ability do you think you would have?
Ooh, a Psy. I think probably the teleportation, because I love to travel. So I would just be like, okay, today I'm going to Turkey and tomorrow I'm going to Paris for coffee. So
that would make life so much easier.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't need a visa for nothing or a passport. I just teleport myself somewhere.
Exactly, yes. I love your thriller, Madness of Sunshine. What can you share with us about your next thriller? There should have been 8.
Yeah, so that was the one that I talked about earlier. That's the locked room mystery in the Alps. What else can I tell you? It's a very limited cast because it's this small group, you know, in the mountains, and it's a beautiful landscape. And I'm going to be sharing some photos of where it's set. That I took myself, and I was really inspired by the landscape when I went there. It was so beautiful, but so remote. And you can see that when the snow comes, you know, it would just be cut off, and just it's breathtaking place. I remember we turned off because we saw a sign for coffee, and we're like, how is there this random sign in the middle of nowhere for coffee? So we just decided to follow. And it just kept going and going, this route through the mountain. We're like, This is where, you know, the serial killer is waiting for us at the end.
That's how they get you with the fake sign.
And so I was so inspired. But actually, at the end of it, there was actually a coffee place randomly, because it usually operates for skiers, but this was out of season, and so it was just this path into nowhere at that point. But yeah, it's just I think if you enjoyed my previous stories, you'll enjoy this one too, because it's got that sort of, it's New Zealand set, and it's got that you know, the environment is part of the book, because it plays such a big role in how all the truths come out, because they end up being stuck in this place with no way out. And then yeah, I really love the final scenes of the book, and again, the environment plays a really big role, so I won't spoiler it, but yeah, I think it's good. You should read it.
Here's an interesting question. Might there be any Psy-Changeling novellas that maybe showcase the human side businesses that I'm convinced Caleb are funding?
I hadn't thought about that, but maybe I could do that. Who knows what they've got their fingers into, which pies they've got them into. I don't know.
I mean,
it's always a surprise.
Yeah, as long as we get more of Caleb, I will be happy with anything. Ooh, a baby question. Hopefully Raphael and Elena will eventually have a baby. I loved when Elena traveled to learn about her grandma.
Well, I mean, there's you've had all the information about super parasites in the book, so Elena is still on her birth control, her angelic birth control, so she's not keen for a super parasite at the moment, so we'll see what fate throws at them.
Yeah, we could have another like Lucas and Sasha moment, you know? It's possible.
I will leave all doors open.
And then, do you know how many more Guild Hunter books we're getting?
I think so, but I won't tell you, because I've been wrong before. And I would rather just write the books until I decide it's the final book, and then I'll tell you, so you can prepare yourself for the last book. But you know, I'm not intending it to be as long as the Psy-Changeling series, for sure, because it's a much smaller cast in general, and I could keep spinning off, but the sort of spin-off books I've done have been, I just felt were integral to the storyline, and I don't want to do ones that don't tie back into the storyline in some way. So yeah, so it will be shorter, but I think even after I finish, I will probably do some novellas, because there are things I want to tie up that I don't think I can do in the full-length books. So yeah, for example, you know, Ransom, you know, he's from the first book, and we never quite got like his story with his librarian, and I'd love to do stuff like that, go back and fill in the pieces, those kind of pieces, which would be quite fun. And but yeah, don't worry about it ending just yet. I will warn you in advance of the last book.
I would love a Ransom novella. I still remember him.
Yeah.
Him being all like angsty about
about his librarian, you know.
And then I know you can't say too much about the next Guild Hunter book, but will Addie and Blue show up in it? I miss my boys.
Oh, they do kind of show up. They don't have a major role, but they do. Like, I'm trying to think whether I left that scene in or if they cut it out, but there's definite like mentions of them, and I'm pretty sure Ilium for sure is Ilium has scenes. I'm just trying to remember if Addie is actually physically in the scene, or if we hear about what he's doing. So I think he is in a physical scene. So if that survives edit, but yeah, you'll get a little update, but obviously it's not their book. So it's Elena and Raphael as the central characters. So, but Elena is very good friends with Ilium, you know. So for sure, he's turning up.
And then going back to the finale, do you have the grand finale somewhat outlined in your head for Guild Hunter?
Yes. Yeah.
You do. That's a little scary.
I think you have to, as a series writer. You know, when I give workshops for writers, I always say if you're going to write a series like mine where it's interconnected, so it's not like, you know, some series have like a setup and then but each story in it is different and can stand alone, whereas my kind of series where it's telling an overall story in the background, it's really important to know the ending, because otherwise it's really easy to go off on little tangents and then it all just kind of floats away, like you don't have a cohesive storyline. To hold a storyline together, you must, as a writer, know, you know, I must know where I'm taking you on this journey and where it's going to unfortunately end one day.
And then I don't remember about this at all, but has there been any further development with Showtime producing your book, Quiet in Her Bones?
So it's still, you know, they're still excited about it, but obviously everything has shut down because of the strikes, which I totally understand and support. But yeah, so I've got no news until, you know, nothing's going to move until, you know, that's sorted out. So watch this space.
Here's a question. Does it bother you when people ask to take a picture with you or sign a copy of your book, maybe for book signings?
Yeah, no. I mean, at a book signing, I'm there because I want to meet readers and yeah, sign your books. So it's totally fine. I'm very happy to do that. And it's really fun because, particularly because I'm in New Zealand, so I don't do very many signings, just in general, because it's really far for me to go to most of the major signings. And so when I do go, I try to be really present for readers, and I actually really, really enjoy it. Yeah, so if you ever come to a signing, I would be more than happy to take a picture with you and sign all your books. I actually just did Rare in Melbourne, and I said to people, oh, I wasn't really selling books, but I said I would sign whatever they brought along. People turned up with the entire NALINI collection, which is like $50.
Wow.
And I mean, respect, they carried it all that way. I signed them all, so yeah, it's not a problem.
I mean, I would do the exact same. Do you have any plans, though, to come to the US or do any international signings?
Not at the moment. There's nothing booked, but I am looking because I think I started traveling again. So far I've just been to Australia, which is real close. But because New Zealand was closed for much longer than a lot of the world after COVID, so it took a little bit longer for me to sort of get myself going. Because with signings, you have to book quite a way in advance for a lot of them. So I'm now working probably like a year or 2 years out, like if I want to book something. So yeah, I'm just keeping my eyes open and see what comes up and where I want to travel as well. Because sometimes I just pick signings based on like, oh, I haven't been there before. So
yeah, it is a good excuse to just.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, any secret or just for fun projects that we may see someday soonish, like Madness of Sunshine or Rock Kiss books, or a new series you want to write when Guild Hunter ends?
Yes, I've always got things that I play with in the background. Right now, there's a couple of things that I've sort of got a little bit done, but a lot of it is time dependent, like how much time I have to work on it around my other projects. So there's nothing right now at a stage where, you know, it could be published sometime soon. But yeah, for sure, I have a works in progress folder that's I just put ideas in and take them out every so often and play with them.
Oh, well, I have a fun question. Would you rather mate with a Psy or a Changeling? And if like you choose one of them, what kind of Psy or Changeling would you mate with?
Whew, I think probably Changeling, just because they're so tactile and affectionate, and but then there is something to be said for melting a sigh. I mean, come on, you know, you would be the only one that could unpeel those layers.
Yeah,
I'm so
when he's
torn.
soft only for you.
Yeah. So I'm like, oh, but I think in terms of my personality and who I am, I'd probably fit better with changelings. Yeah, I think so. And what kind?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I would say I was gonna say bears just because they're so fun, but I think I'm maybe too introverted for the bears. I love them, but oh my
They are a
god,
lot.
they
Yeah.
are a lot. I would probably end up with a feline of some kind, like a leopard or a tiger or something. Yeah, so they're together, but they also like to have their own space. So.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, which of your characters would you most want to be besties with?
Besties with. Ooh, there's so many characters. Honestly, I have so much fun with all of them. Like, I could imagine just throwing knives with Zara. Like, wouldn't she be fun to have as a friend? She would just be that friend who would just cut people for you because she's so loyal. But I would love to be in Tammy's kitchen, you know, baking with her. I would actually really enjoy spending time with Drew. He's such a fun character. And who else? Let me see. I mean, Memory. Memory is amazing. She's blunt, but she's also so kind. And she's got such effervescent energy, which I love. I honestly, all of them, I just want to know all of them. Can I just be besties with everybody?
I mean, I guess they all live in your head, right?
That's right. They're all my besties.
And then another difficult question. If you had to choose, who is your top favorite Psy-Changeling hero, heroine, and couple?
No, I'm never going to answer that question. I just have no idea. Yeah, it's like, who is your favorite? I don't know. No, I can't. I can't. It's like they are like inside my head. So they're like people I know. And it's like, who is your favorite of all these really wonderful people you know? It's like, I can't choose. No.
I mean, hero for me, easiest thing ever, okay? I love always. I love for like all the little snippets you have of him and the future books after Heart of Obsidian. But yeah, his book is the one that I reread the most.
Yeah, he's the most murdery of them all. So
yeah, Caleb Krychek is the only right answer.
I love it.
I guess maybe like an easier question, like which hero of yours do you think would be the most your type?
My type?
Yeah.
Let me see. I'm going through all the heroes in my head, okay? Like, so the first one that comes to mind is probably Riley. Because he's just so warm, you know, I think, and just can't you just imagine him just giving you a hug? He would, yeah. And so now still going through Max is also one I could see. But see, all of them have ladies who would just eviscerate me. So this is a purely intellectual exercise. I also really like for myself, if I had to date a character, I think Vasek is a really interesting character. He's so quiet, and as a writer, I really find those characters really fascinating to write. To sort of peel back the layers and discover who they are. And in the Guild Hunter series, it's the same with Jason. Jason is a very, very quiet character. They're actually very difficult to write because they just don't talk. It's like I have to fill this page with them not talking. But yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I think yeah, you know what? I'll stick with Riley since he was the first one that I kind of thought of.
Yeah. That's a good answer. Oh, here's a sweet comment. I've always liked drawing, and your books were my inspiration to take a step forward. Thank you so much for always giving them your love.
I love your work, Kiara. They're so beautiful. She does the chippies.
Oh my gosh.
Ones.
Yes, I love them. And then speaking of changelings, which other animal changeling will you be introducing next?
In the series. I don't know that I would be in. I'm trying to think if there's anything. Well, in the new book, you get to see some. I can't tell you what it is because it's like a spoiler, and you'll figure it out at once. But you'll get to see a changeling that you haven't seen. He's not the protagonist, but he is something different that you will get to see. They haven't seen up close and personal in the books as much before. Haven't really thought of which other. There is one. It has to do with the sea changelings. So you will with Black Sea. So you're going to see someone very unique in there as well. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for the moment.
And then I have a question. Of all your series, which one do you feel the most at home and comfortable? Like the one that always comes easily for you at writing?
You know, it's... So I've been writing both the Guild Hunter series and the Psy-Changeling series for over 10 years now. And so they both feel very familiar. And I don't think I could sort of differentiate between the two of them in terms of comfort with writing, because the reason I started writing another series after I was already writing Psy-Changeling is that it's really good for my brain to switch into like another world, something completely different, because prior to that I was writing 2 Psy-Changeling books a year, and I realized I needed time to reset in between, and time to allow myself to think about the stories in that world before coming back to it. And so I would say it's equally at home, because I do know them so well. I know the characters so well. I know the world so well. And so each time I come to one of them after being away for 6 months, it's like I get a sigh and I'm going back into that world. But I get it for both of them, you know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when you write, do you only focus on one book, like only Psy-Changeling for now, and then once you finish, you can go back to Guild Hunter, or have you ever worked on the 2 side by side?
I generally don't with the Psy-Changeling and Guild Hunter books, because they're in the same genre-ish, right? So one is more paranormal romance, while the other is more urban fantasy romance, but it's still like a speculative fiction type world. And so when I'm working on those, I like to just, if I'm working on a secondary project, it's usually either my thrillers or my contemporaries. So just very different. Like the world building that I'm doing in the Psy-Changeling or Guild Hunter worlds, I'm not doing in the same way in those books. So it's a really good break for my brain to just focus on one, and then as my side thing, work on something very completely different. That does change sometimes when I have to break for edits. So I might be working on the Psy-Changeling book, for example, but the edits for the Guild Hunter book will come in. And what I do, I used to previously try to work on the edits in the morning and then work on the book I was writing in the afternoon. But I found that I just wasn't efficient, because I think it was spreading myself too thin. So now when edits come in, I actually stop work on the project. I finish the edits by doing full days, and then I go back. So each thing is getting my full attention for that period of time. And I find that works really well for me. Yeah.
Would you ever go back to your contemporary romances, like your sports ones, or write another rock star series?
I'd like to actually. There's a few characters in there that I like. Billy, I really like Billy, and I think he should have a book. Yeah, so I'd love to, because if you look back on my career, I've actually always written contemporary at points, and then always written my sort of speculative fiction stuff. So I do really enjoy doing both, but again, that's something that comes down to time. So there is something I've sort of half finished at the moment. So I'm hoping at some point that I can fully finish it, and then you can have it. That's why I don't talk about it, because it might take me a year to actually, finish it. But yeah, I haven't sort of walked away from the contemporaries at all.
Okay, I asked that because Rock Wedding is one of my favorite books ever. Second chance romance is my favorite trope, and I love when there's good grovel. NALINI, you delivered on the grovel there. Do you think you'd ever write another book kind of like that, like another groveling second chance romance?
That was such an intense book to write, because it's emotionally so raw. And so it's a hard book to write, in the sense that I was crying as I was writing it. But yeah, if that's the characters who speak to me and say, this is the story we want to tell, yeah, I would. I wouldn't walk away from that. I would confront the sort of darker issues, or the more sort of really painful issues that can come between people, even if they love each other. I think those are difficult, but also really rewarding books to write, because you're confronting all these really difficult things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then, what's your least favorite trope in fiction?
Secret babies.
You don't like secret babies?
I don't like secret babies. Like, I have friends who write for like Harlequin.
Yes,
and
I was gonna say that.
I love their books, but I'm like, I'm not reading your secret baby book. I'm just not. They're like trying to tell me that this is a secret baby book I would like. And I'm like, no, this is not a secret. I don't want to read it.
Secret baby is such a polarizing trope. Then the opposite. What's your favorite trope? Your favorite romance trope?
So I am a lifelong romance reader. So, like, I have read so many tropes, and so when it's like, oh, can I have like my top 5 at least?
I mean, we could do that.
Well, obviously, I like fated mates, because I write mates and stuff like that. But I also really like friends to lovers. When it's done well, I think it's such a fun. There's room for so much in it. You can have the really fun and warm and kind of, oh, you've been here all along stories, and then you have the really intense, like, why didn't you see me, and like, I just love it. And what else do I really love? Oh, throw some tropes at me.
Age gap, forbidden, office romance.
Oh yeah, I like office romance.
Yeah.
I like office romance as well. And I have to say, I can't look past a good like a, I don't know what it's called, like, like the mountain man, kind of like rough hero. I don't know if they're a trope, but they're
grumpy hero.
What's that?
Grumpy hero?
Yes, grumpy hero. Yeah, I do like myself a grumpy hero, I have to say. They're just so fun to unravel,
Yeah.
And when it's done well, you're just like giggling, because it's like, oh, he's finally cracking, So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can see Psy as kind of almost grumpy,
Yeah, they are the grumpiest of the grumpiest.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, hard to write a valid enough reason in secret baby trope. Yeah.
Exactly. Because the whole thing usually in the secret baby is that they get back together with the person who is the father of the baby, right? And then if they're a good enough person to get together with again, why don't you tell them about the baby? This is my thought process.
You have to throw away logic when you read these kinds of books. Oh, do you think you would ever independently publish anything? You have
I
independently.
have, yeah. My contemporary, my rock kiss series, and the rugby series, the hard play series, are indies. So yeah, so I'm quite a techie. So when all this came out, I really wanted to know how it all worked. So I did it to see how it all worked, and yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm not against indie publishing. Yeah. I really love my publishing houses that I work with at the moment. I love them. But I also like having this avenue of, like, if I want to do side projects or, something a little bit offbeat, something different, or something that's just a one-off, then I love having the option to indie publish. Yeah.
Ooh, would you ever write a menage?
A
That's an
menage.
interesting question.
I have never done it, but I suppose if it was, there's this idea sort of floating around in my head at some point in the future that it could possibly involve something like that, but it hasn't taken shape enough for me to know for sure. So yeah, I would if there was a good enough story reason. So I write quite plot heavy books, and so I need everything to tie back to what is the reason? What is the reason for this, beside it being really hot? So I need.
Honestly, you don't need anything more than that. Ooh, okay. What else would you like to achieve as a writer? Like become a publisher or something?
No, I don't want to be a publisher. I actually love writing. When I started off on this journey, my goal was to make my living as a writer. Like, everything else is a bonus, like being a bestseller or anything like that is wonderful and joyous. But what I always wanted was to have my job be a writer, and so I just want to keep doing that for as long as I live, and I want to. I guess what I want to achieve is I want to keep creating content that is new and innovative and that readers enjoy. I don't want to be in a rut, which is why I've done so many different things over the years. Why I'm writing the thrillers now that have no romance in them, because it's good for me to flex my muscles and learn new things as I go. So yeah, I hope to continue learning as a writer and creating new material that somebody finds interesting.
And then you said you're a lifelong romance reader. Do you remember the first romance that you ever read and fell in love with? Or do you remember your favorite authors from when you first started reading romance?
Ooh, this is a long time ago. I remember my aunt gave me this bag of Harlequin novels, and I would have been quite a young teenager. And one of them, the name's just gone out of my head, but it was one of the old style Mills and Boon, and they used to be much bigger. So I think it's almost like a single title length. And it's about this nurse who goes to this island, and he's basically a billionaire, and then she has like a brain tumor, and it's called The Time Is Short by Narilla Hilliard. Yeah.
Ooh.
And it's really old, but it's such a quintessential romance because she's dying of a brain tumor and he doesn't know, and then they have this kind of intense relationship. And did you find it?
No, I'm trying to look it up.
It's super old. Yeah, I remember because I still have a copy of that, and that stuck in my head, and then so I really got into romance, and then I was reading. So I read all those really old school, like big historical romances where like it was like like Rosemary Rogers and
yes.
And now I'm like looking back horrified. I was at like 14 or 15.
Yeah. It was probably a lot.
But then I remember another book I really loved was Jude Devereux's Remembrance, which I don't see mentioned as much as A Knight in Shining Armor, which is the one most people mention. But Remembrance is also a time travel romance. and it just made me cry and cry and cry and cry. And I just love that book so much. And I've still got my copy, my original copy that I bought. So she was someone I picked up very early on. And of course, the great Nora Roberts. But funnily enough, I found her first as Jodie Robb.
I did too. Me too, yes.
I am an obsessed fan, okay? To this day, from my teenage years to now, I've read everything. So the Jodie Robb books, she can write them forever, and I will read them
I think she is going to write them forever.
That's great. I'm okay with that. But yeah, there's been so many authors. I think I need to mention Christine Feehan, because she had a big impact on me, because she was one of the first paranormal romance writers that was one of the first big ones out there that was doing paranormal romance, what we now think of as paranormal romance. That was something new. Back then, there weren't very many. There was, I think, Christine Feehan, Jane Castle. She's also someone I've followed. Jane Castle, Jane Ann Krantz, Amanda Quick, it's the same person. I've followed her for eons, and she was doing futuristic romance before I think it was even a category. So, and then Sherilyn Kenyon, these writers had a impact because they were doing things I was really interested in, and I didn't know what to call it or what it was exactly that I wanted, because I was reading fantasy and I was reading romance, but I kind of wanted to mush it all together. And that's what paranormal romance and urban fantasy romance does. And then to see it in these books, it was just like, I know this genre now, and then I obsessively read everything I could find in it. So, and here I am.
Yeah, that was actually how I kind of discovered romance. Like, I started with paranormal fantasy stuff, like the Fever series by Karen Marie Monet.
Yes,
that was one of my early romances. Also, of course, the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. Like, I just inhaled a lot of those, like, classic paranormal romance series. Yeah.
I remember when that came out, the J.R. Ward books. I remember that kerfuffle all across the internet, because everybody was reading the books. Yeah.
Yes, and then, like, because of them, I found you too, because you were, like, in the same category, and rest is history. Fell in love with Psy-Changeling. I actually have read, I think, one of your older Harlequins.
Oh, have you?
I don't remember what it was called, but I love Harlequins. I read a couple old school stuff, like Charlotte Lamb is one of my favorites. Just that the angst in old school Harlequins are another level.
It is intense.
Mm-hmm.
There was the Dutch author. She wrote for Harlequin for ages. You'd know it. Anyway, lost the title, but like Emma Darcy and so many others. I read so many Harlequins, because part of it was because in New Zealand, and so this is pre-ebooks, so the easiest access to romance was quite often the Harlequin books, because they had their own distribution in New Zealand, whereas a lot of other publishers didn't. So there was less choice. And they were just fantastic, and they covered so many different areas. They had a Harlequin that was more sweet, and then there was the sexier one, and then and it's like that punch of emotion that I think a good Harlequin writer does really well. You'll only know if you grew up reading them.
Yes, I have all of your older Harlequins. Is Vander's the author?
Yeah. There was another one. There's she used to write nurses and doctors a lot, I think. Somebody will know in the comments.
Sherilyn Kenyon. Yes, she is back. And then, do you have a favorite in the Black Dagger Brotherhood series, NALINI?
Ooh. Let me have a think. I think I would stick to the first one, just because it is the initial introduction to everything, and it's new, and it's like, what is even happening? And then you're just swept away with it. Yeah. Because I think we all remember that sensation of reading something and it's like just fresh and new and can't wait to get to the rest of it.
Yeah, that's true. Although for me, I think I would have to go with book 2, just because Rage. I love him so much. Let's see. Oh, Betty Niels. Could it be?
Yes, that's the name I was thinking of. Yeah, she wrote heaps. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, do you ever read inside your genre in between your writing? If yes, do you have any recs?
I do, but it's rare just because I am so judgy McJudgy pants now because I have read so much in the genre. I love the genre so deeply that it's really hard to surprise me at this point. And I don't necessarily mean surprise as in you have to come up with something new, but it's how the story is told. And so I have my favorites that I obviously read. I still follow the Jane Castle series. Like, if you haven't read them, they're so fun. They're set on a planet called Harmony, and there was this interstellar kind of event, and humans went over and colonized this planet, except then the interstellar curtain closed down and they got cut off from Earth, and then all their technology stopped working, and so they had to set up this whole colony on this planet that has alien artifacts and stuff, and it's such a fun series. I really love it, and it has a lightness. Jane Ann Krentz's writing just has a lightness, and I just love how she does emotion. So I'm still reading that. That is one I've been reading for yonks and will probably read forever. What else? I'm trying to think of things that I've read more recently. If you haven't read Thea Harrison's books, Dragonbound was fantastic. I have actually I read the Ali Hazelwood's upcoming Bride. It's fantastic. And so that's probably the newest paranormal romance I've read, because it's not even out yet, but it's really, really good, and I had a really great time reading it, so definitely recommend that. And it's like when someone asks you for a recommendation and you forget all the things that you have in your head, so yeah. I'll get off, and then I'll be like, oh, and I forgot this person and this person and this person. Pretty much anyone I've mentioned as reading, I would still recommend. One author that I think doesn't get enough love is Eileen Wilkes. I think I think it sort of straddles the line between paranormal romance and urban fantasy, is really, really good. And I don't know, more will come to me, so probably just
feel free to interrupt if anything just comes to your brain.
I'll just blurt out names.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Bride, I was actually chatting with Allie this morning, because I was like, if there's anything you want to ask Nalini, just let me know. Because we totally bonded over our love for Psy-Changeling and over Caleb. Yeah, we love the series and that man so much. But let me see. She said, and I quote, "I want to crack her head open and see inside it. I bet it's a beautiful place."
It's a crazy place. You don't want to be in there. Yeah. It's full of people.
But she told me that you blurbed Bride. I mean, I'm so excited for that book. I'm always so excited when authors write in, a different genre.
Yeah. I was actually really surprised because Ellie's voice in contemporary is so strong. And I thought, how is this going to transition over into, paranormal, which tends to have a slightly different voice to contemporary. But she did it. I mean, it's still Ellie. You can tell it's her, but it's just a very paranormal book, and I love it. And there were a few surprises in there. I was like, oh, okay. I used to read Laura Lee, okay, so I've seen this before, so I could deal with it.
Okay, that's a good hint.
Yeah, that's a good hint. Yeah, no, and so Laura's actually another author that people can read. She's an old school paranormal romance, but I think her series still stands up really well, particularly the one with the genetic, you know, the humans that were spliced with animal DNA. Yeah. That one, yeah. Those fantastic series, super sexy.
The Breed series, right?
Yes, that's the one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Oh, would you ever write a high fantasy or sci-fi book?
Yes.
Ooh.
It would tend to likely be sci-fi, not high fantasy. So I think the Psy-Changeling series leans science fiction-y a little bit, and I do have half-written sci-fi stuff, more sci-fi stuff. But yeah.
Ooh, I guess we can hopefully expect to see that sometime in the future. And then I did have a couple reader questions from Instagram. How did you come up with character names? They're always so unique.
So this takes me forever. Okay, so I'm a name thief. So if you meet me and you have a really amazing name, I just file it away in the back of my brain. And of course, nothing is ever based on a person, but the name itself, I really like to collect names. But otherwise, and so sometimes a character appears and it'll be like, this is my name, and I just go with it. But a lot of times I can write a whole book with no name more easily than I can write a book with the wrong name. So I don't give them placeholder names. The only time I use a placeholder name is if I'm like dictating and I just need a name to write over when I do my edits. So once I get to know a character, that's when I kind of know their name. And sometimes I know that their name comes from a particular culture, or it's a particular style of name, or it's a particular, how do I put it, like a feel of name. And so then I go hunting. Like if someone was looking at my search histories, they'd think I have like 10,000 babies because I'm constantly on baby name sites, like just looking through names. I like spend hours and hours until I find the one that resonates with a character. And then and if you read my work, you probably realize that I have a preference in general for names that are not too long, or have apostrophes and stuff, because I think this is from reading a lot of high fantasy as I grew up.
Yes.
Really cool.
Like you don't even know how to pronounce the word.
The wrong name, it just, I don't know, it just doesn't work. Like the character just, it feels like a badly fitting coat on a character, and I would rather just them not have a name for a lot of the book, because I know them in my head, and then at the end, you know, I find out who they are.
Well, personally, I would not mind if you had a character named Lacey in one of your future books.
I've already put it away in the back of my head, Lacey.
Yes,
don't worry.
that's what I want to hear. And then just a couple more questions. If anyone else has any questions before you wrap it up, because it's already been an hour and it's flown by.
So fast.
Yeah. So let's see. Which Guild Hunter book was the hardest one to write?
Which Guild Hunter book was the hardest one to write? I would say probably Prophecy, because of what happens in it, to the characters, because obviously I'm so attached to these characters, and sort of, I think we've lost Lacey, so I'll just keep talking. So what happened to the characters, you know, it was really hard, and you know, working through that, but I knew the story needed to be told, so I just kept on with it, and got there. Lacey, where are you? Our hostess has probably been kicked off the internet. I can't actually see you guys' questions, so I'm just going to touch this and see if I can see. Okay, someone is talking about Eileen Wilkes. Yes. Have you thought about writing a true... Oh,
Okay,
there you go. Lacey is back.
so sorry, guys.
I just was rambling while you were gone. I did see a question asking if I would write a true standalone paranormal romance, but I didn't see the second part of the question. I think it was about the world building. Oh, the grand world
or
building.
you cannot write without a grand world building.
Probably I need to do the world building. I think that just seems to be a natural part of my writing process. So, I think standalone paranormal romance is probably going to be difficult for me unless I do something kind of quite epic where it's all in one and a really big story told in one. Yeah.
Everyone is suggesting their own names. Okay. Do you generally write when inspiration strikes, or is it more structured in its approach, even though you let your characters talk to you?
So it's a bit more structured because, I have deadlines and I have books that are on pre-order. So you guys want the book that is on pre-order. So, but that doesn't mean that I'm not inspired. So what I like writing to deadline, like I like writing, having a date when I think the book needs to be done by, but I also don't like the manic rush of, I wasn't the student who was writing my essay at night, the night before it was due, because that would just give me such terrible anxiety. So I like to break things up. So I like to write. So, like, for example, if I know a book is due in December, I would work out how many months I had to write the book, and then I would break down, okay, I want to have a first draft done by this month, and then I want to have my second draft done by this month, so I have time before I hand it in to go over it and polish it as much as I want. So I feel like if I plan it out in the sense my writing time is planned out, I feel like the material I'm turning in is better. It's not rushed. And so, it's more structured in the sense that I say each day, this is what I want to achieve. But it's not structured in the sense that I say I will be writing from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. It's more like, okay, this is what I need to do today. It doesn't matter when it gets done. It just needs to be done today. And so there's a lot of flexibility built into it. And it's also like yesterday, I had a full writing day, but I ended up not writing because I knew there was something I had to figure out about the character. So I was going around the house doing housework, which sounds like I'm procrastinating, but it was actually thinking. Like I needed to figure this out before writing the next scene, because the scene would be much better if I figured out this issue. And I did, actually. I figured it out at 9 o'clock at night. The house is very clean. And so today when I'm writing, it's going much faster because I have done the prep work for these scenes. So it's I guess it is structured in the sense that I break down how far I want to get into a book in each particular month or week, but it's not structured in the sense that I'm not regimented day to day.
And then one final question before I have any more technical issues. All right, let's end it on this great question. I've always wanted to jump into your series, but I have no idea where to start. Where do you recommend?
Okay, so depending on what your preference is, if you like sort of warmer, like a romantic series with a lot of sort of found family or friendship and sort of more community, I would say start at the very start of the Psy-Changeling series. I know it's a long series, but if you start at Slave to Sensation, you're just going to figure out if you like the books or not, and you will have begun at the beginning. And if you like the books, you can keep going, and if you don't like the books, well, it's one book and you've tried it. Because Slave to Sensation, I think, stands quite well on its own, because at the time I wrote it, I didn't know I would have the chance to write this huge series, so I didn't really open it up. It really opens out in the third book, I think all the big plot lines open up. So you can read Slave to Sensation and Visions of Heat sort of almost as standalones. But if you don't mind a little bit darker, and some with a slight more urban fantasy-ish vibe, but it's still a romance, I would go for Angel's Blood. It is much darker. It's there's a lot of gruesome stuff happens in there, but it is a romance. It's just a romance with a edge, and you still get the community, because I realized that that's what I do in my books. I like families. I like friendships. I like people having besties. There are very few books I've written where it's very isolated people. But yeah, that would be my recommendation. Either start with Slave to Sensation or Angel's Blood, and just invest in that one book, and see if you like it. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Nalini, for being here today, chatting with us. It was amazing getting to finally talk to you. I've been such a big fan for so many years. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us, too. Is there anything else you wanted to share, Nalini, before we end the live?
I was just going to say thank you for having me, Lacey. It's been really fun chatting with you. And I guess you can find me on nalinisingh.com if you don't know my work and you want to explore. There's tons of excerpts and short stories on there. Feel free to explore. And also, if you do read my series, don't forget to join my newsletter, because I do sometimes send out free short stories and deleted scenes. And I think the last deleted scene was a Caleb and Sahara one that just went out last month, maybe. So yeah, join that. And this was really fun. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for the questions. The time went by so fast, and yeah, can't wait to do it again.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so much. Bye, everyone.